Okay, so we are online. Hi, everybody. I'm very glad that we're again together. And today is Thursday. Every Thursday, we've got WAPI webinars. WAPI searches all over the internet, all over the world to find the best experts on the e-com market, invite the expert, and make a great webinar to bring knowledge and information for you to develop your business. And today with us is Alex Chernenko. Alex is owner of Chern Co company. He's a business consultant and company information specialist from Ireland with 10 years experience helping clients worldwide to register companies to sell in Europe. Hi, Alex.
Hi everyone, hi Alexander. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you for joining us today. So tell us, please, how did it happen that you are in e-com now, that you're helping e-com companies? What was your journey?
Well, my journey started about 11 years at this stage. I decided to become an entrepreneur and start working for myself. And I registered the company, went at that stage, it was very scary. I didn't know what's going to happen. Will the business work or not? But I used a professional service and it was actually a very easy process. Some months later, friends came to me and said, oh, we saw that you decided to become an entrepreneur. Can you help us as well? And that's how the company registration started. It was basically helping my friends to go through the bureaucracy steps that I did myself and with the help of kind of professional help. But I realized there is a huge demand for this. And that's kind of started.
I understand you 100% because the WAPI story is almost the same. So my friends knew that I'm in Europe and I'm doing the logistics, and they came to me and told me, can I help them with warehouses and courier services in Spain to connect everything through IT and the logistics? And I said, okay, I can help. I'll try to do this. We did it in Spain, then they asked me to help them in Italy, then in Germany, then in Bulgaria, then in Greece, then come other France, then already not only France, and that's how everything is built. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. 10 years later, we now have a number of office locations. We have a team of 10 people, and it's growing. We learn more. We start to add in more services to the clients. So it's really an interesting journey to. I think that the most fun I get is when my clients make more money than I do, and they grow at exponential rate, and that I can learn from them too, which makes it a win-win scenario. We help them to grow and they help us to become more efficient in what we do.
It's the best case is when your client is earning a lot of money and you help them to earn money, then you feel that you bring real value to the market. And this is the best feeling that the entrepreneur can feel, I think.
Absolutely.
Wonderful, wonderful. So you're not only focused on e-com, you're helping to register companies. What is in general the spectrum of the services that you provide?
I would say e-commerce probably at this stage takes about between 40 and 50% of the clientele, but we have manufacturing companies who kind of don't really sell to direct consumers. They just produce goods and then they sell to other shops or retailers. Then there is many startups from IT and software companies like yourself, for example. You have a software product and you want to have the whole world start using it, which could be nothing to do with e-commerce. It could be any software platform or some sort of online website with a subscription. So you're looking at maybe 50% e-commerce, another 30% of IT and software, and the remaining 20% could be classical business, I don't know, aviation, leasing, anything else.
So what do you see now at the market? What trends do you see at the market happening? I'm interested mostly in e-commerce, in trading e-commerce like Amazon, like Omnichannel, other marketplaces. What companies are asking you? They come from where do they come from? Australia, from Japan, from Italy, from where comes the companies and what do they ask you when they want to do the e-commerce in Europe?
So normally, because I speak Russian, Ukrainian, and a few other languages, I used to speak 6 languages. When I
Wow.
was younger, now it's only 3.5, I would say. But a lot of business comes from Eastern Europe because they cannot sell directly on Amazon. We also get Asia, like China. We get some Arabic countries. We even get some bits from Israel as well. We have some clients. So you're looking Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, Moldova, Asia, some of the Emirates possibly. And our clients have a few companies sometimes. So if it's a startup, they may only start in Europe with the first company, but we also get a lot of business where they already have a US company, for example, and they have maybe a company in their home country and they're looking to expand, and we give them third or second company. So it's a mix, but it's from early startup for a person who does the first step to somebody who already has a portfolio of companies, and it will be across that range.
You're doing a very important job. So, and I'm very interested to hear your presentation. The topic today is how to start online business in Europe, the first steps of EU, European Union company registration. I think we're ready to start.
Yeah, well, I have many slides. I'm not sure if we managed to cover all of them, but I would try to be as quick as possible. And do we break for questions in between, or do I kind of run through what's the preferred?
You just feel yourself comfortable. You just go through the slides, and I'll stop you at some point and ask you the questions. It will be like a dialogue.
Well, let's get going. So just a quick introduction. When I started doing company formation, I set up a company called Chern Co, and rather than doing it, little by little, I decided to go all the way in and make sure that we give the full portfolio of services. So I registered as a not just company information agent, but for every single services that a client would need, including office address, including secretarial, and including taxes. So my approach was to be the central point for a client rather than diverting them to some other places. So the company at the moment has essentially jurisdictions and abilities to provide all the service. Now, I don't see the chat, but maybe from our audience, just a quick question. How many of the attendees of this webinar are already selling in Europe?
I'll ask this question on the website, and you continue, and I'll tell you the answer.
Just out of curiosity. Well, at the moment, if you look at Europe, there is a couple of popular markets, and over the next few slides, I want to give you the size of the European market. So if we look, and I will focus on Amazon because I believe Amazon would be the biggest audience of today, but this is applicable to other e-commerce sellers that are not necessarily looking to sell only on Amazon. So if we look at the sales, they've been growing steadily. And if we compare the revenue of United States with Europe, you're going to see that United States still does a lot of sales, but the next markets would be Germany and United Kingdom. And that's what we see the trends now. When somebody comes into Europe, they usually focus primarily on Germany and UK. Mm-hmm. In terms of e-commerce users in the whole of Europe, out of the population of 740 million, last year, the number of actual buyers were just under 600 million, but this year it actually went to 600 million, especially with lockdown. We see that, pretty much 80% of the Europe population are buying online, which is a huge opportunity for e-commerce sellers. And if you look at traffic, there is one figure that you will find surprising, that in US, there is just under 200 million of unique online users, but in Europe it's 290. So it's 100 million more unique visitors in Europe than in US, which is strange.
How is it possible?
It is possible. It's that, there is in US you have a smaller population than the whole of Europe. That's one of the questions. But then US population are more, they have more buying power, so they buy more per user than in Europe. But traffic wise, it's actually 100 million more. So if you look at Amazon, Amazon is the #1 e-commerce platform. But there are others that are local. And what we see now that Shopify started doing their own also distribution center. So maybe in 2021, we're going to see people using the Shopify delivery network as opposed to only Amazon FBA network. So it's an interesting game. And another thing to say is that Google also is now dumping Amazon and promoting more Shopify. So if you put your products on Google and Shopify, Google is giving you some credits to promote it. I think they kind of would like to create a competition, and that's the trend we are now seeing, that Google and Shopify are kind of teaming up together to make some sort of competition for Amazon. That's the trend for 2021. Looking at traffic distribution, you would see that Germany is the #1 winner. It gets just over 40% of the traffic in Europe, and UK is just a little bit over 30%. So 70% of the whole European traffic is actually between those two jurisdictions. And it's quite straightforward, because from Germany you can get delivery to other countries, and it's also easier for the sellers to use one warehouse rather than using warehouses in multiple countries. I'll explain why. It's related to the VAT and taxes. Now, let's look at the Amazon sellers in total. The number of all accounts registered is almost 9 million, but active only 2.3. And again, you see huge competition in the United States. It's over 1 million sellers. But in UK and Germany, it's about 280, 250,000, which still makes it a good entrance opportunity for the sellers. If we can say that US market is quite saturated and it's harder to set up a new account, in Europe, it's not that much saturated yet. And the final slide for 2020, the number of new accounts registered is less than 500,000. And we see now, an opportunity that people still go on Amazon with 15.6%. But then if you look at Germany, and if you look at UK, you would see that it's coming to 8 and 9% of the registration. So it's spreading. With the new market registered in Netherlands and active, we're going to see some people also switching to the Netherlands in the 2021. So when somebody sets up an account, and we start with Amazon, but then I'm going to give you an idea about the whole European company. It doesn't matter if you're only going on Amazon or other platform. You would be looking to set up the company first if you are outside of Europe. If you're a European resident, you could start selling as individual. I also have a slide that explains the benefits of individual versus company in a couple of moments. But let's presume that you decided to register with the company. You would need the whole company packs. You would need a bank card. You would need to provide a proof of ID and proof of address, which is now a critical for any payment, e-commerce or banking solution. And if you're going to Europe, you would need to have a VAT registration and URI number, especially if you import the goods or if you sell from one country to another. And you would need a local tax registration, obvious contact details, and you would be paying Amazon professional fees if you have a professional account. Now, another thing to consider, that Amazon has a list of banks that you could distribute money to. So you can take out money from Amazon, but if it's not in this specific list, you won't be able to draw it in euro. So for example, if you're based, let's say in Romania, you cannot take money out into Romanian bank in euro. You have to have it in this country. Same thing with Czech Republic. Czech Republic distribution happens in Czech koruna. So you need to open a bank in these countries if you want the payment in euro. Otherwise, Amazon will pardon my French, but they will screw you on the currency conversion. Their currency conversion is not as good as they. So you would need to consider in which jurisdiction you open a company, but it also in which jurisdiction you open a bank to get the payment of your full amount rather than losing something on the conversion. And many sellers, before they come to Europe, they ask me, where do I start? Where should I open my account? Where should I launch? And I'm putting this question back to yourself. Ask yourself, where is your target customer? If you have a product, which country, which target audience is most likely to buy your product? Where is less competition? For example, you may have a good product that will sell in US, but in Europe there is already similar products or similar brands. So you're asking yourself about competition, about the target audience. Can you import things into that country? It could be a fantastic product, no competition, but if you import your goods, you'd be paying like 30% of the import tax. That's another question you would be asking. Then, okay, what are the taxes in that country? And taxes not just on profit, but if you start taking money from that business, because there are taxes on profits in some countries and there are taxes on dividends. So you would have to add all of them up before making the final decision. And again, if you start selling particular country, do you need to provide the language support? Can you speak the language of that country? If you go to France, for example, and they start asking you in French, would you be able to provide a support in that language? Or would you go to UK because you speak English? That sort of questions, again, would pop up. And again, for administration, accountancy support, what would be your maintenance fee for a year? You calculate it as well. And again, looking at competition and buying power. My last question is buying power. It could be no competition, but if you're going to a third world country and people, their average monthly income is below a certain value, they won't be able to pay a premium price for a product. So their buying power is small. There is no competition, small taxes, but they're just not buying enough of your goods. So these are the questions that sellers have to answer themselves and do a little bit of research. Usually we start.
The main word was to do a little bit of research. It was about a huge research right now. Thank you. Very good questions. Very good questions for every viewer, every guest who is now watching. This is what you have to do to start. Yeah, I would screenshot it.
Yeah, and I could share some slides with you afterwards, and you can pass them to the audience.
It will be on YouTube afterwards.
Excellent. Well, what we see normally is that when somebody enters Europe, up until now, it's been Germany and UK. And with UK leaving European Union, starting from next year, you can say, well, if you want to start selling Europe, just Germany is the #1 spot. And it's also the right time now, because until the end of December, the VAT rate in Germany was reduced to 16%. In UK, it's 20%. So now you can still sell to the rest of Europe from UK, but at the end of the 31st of January 2021, it will exit. We don't know exactly where there are going to be some import or additional tax duties added on top, but at the moment, this is what you're looking at. And Germany is now giving you 3% off on their VAT rate to try it. So if you want to try European market, Germany is one of the best places to start. What you need to consider that you will have to file VAT returns on a monthly basis. In UK, they're a little bit easier. They allow you to file it quarterly or even once per 6 months. Or you could even apply to have a flat rate scheme where you just pay certain level every month and you do one declaration on a yearly basis. In Germany, it has to be filed. It's strict and they're very particular about this. Another thing to consider for sellers is like...
I have a question. Why did you say you can try? Because of the thresholds? You said you can try the 16% in Germany.
Yeah, well, now it's 16 until the 31st. It's reduced.
And what will happen in next year?
It's go back to 19.
Oh, okay.
It goes back. It's a temporary measure to counter the COVID-19 effect on businesses. They reduced the VAT rate, and a couple of other European countries did it as well. For example, in Ireland here, from 23 they reduced it to 21.
Okay.
So that's how can
the 1st of January it comes back.
Yeah, it will come back. They may extend it. We don't know exactly, but the expectation is that from 1st of January it goes back to the 19.
Understood.
Okay. Another topic I would like to cover is who will be delivering goods, and that's possibly what WAPI could also advise to the e-commerce. That selling in a particular country is one way, but who will be delivering the goods to the end consumer? If it's Amazon FBA model, it's one thing, but FBM it's kind of something. It's actually fulfilled by merchant.
No, it's going to be WAPI all over the Europe.
Yes, so we can put here on this slide, FBM is basically when you deliver goods yourself. You're the merchant, you're responsible for the delivery. In Amazon terms, it's called FBM. You know, in other terms, it's called delivering it yourself or using a third-party supplier.
FB WAPI, fulfilled by WAPI.
Yes, I know.
Fulfilled by WAPI, FB WAPI.
FBB, yeah. We should add it on the next slide.
Okay.
FBA. Well, FBA is probably the most popular option for Amazon sellers who are trying Amazon initially, and they start, and you know the picture here illustrates quite well. You start with one particular country, whether it's, for example, let's take Germany. You register for German VAT. You deliver goods to Amazon warehouse, and from there you start selling to other countries. You don't need to worry about VAT in those countries. All you need to worry is measure and monitor how much you're selling to each of those countries, because each one of them has thresholds. For example, if from Germany you delivered goods of 100,000 in sales to Italy, you're already above the threshold. So you would need to register for VAT in Italy, for example. So, you know, but this is a good opportunity for startups who don't want to invest into accounting, who don't want to worry about VATs in other countries. They choose one country, deliver goods, and from there they just start selling to others. And if they see a particular growth or sales in another country, they could then also register there for VAT and deliver goods there for VAT. But this is how kind of most of the sellers start from our experience. Another model would be when somebody is already at certain level of sales and they realize that they are missing, they're paying too much to Amazon for delivering goods from one country to another. So they start selling inventory into multiple countries. And the seller controls how much inventory they actually send and load to particular country. But again, if you start delivering goods to any European country, you need to register for VAT there. If your goods are stored in a particular warehouse, you are subject to VAT registration. So if you start using this model where you deliver something to Germany, something to Italy, you would have to have local VAT registration in those countries. But it gives you more control over cost and fees. And a final model is pan-European FBA, where Amazon takes your goods and automatically decides how much inventory to store. They're using their own algorithm and they distribute it to different warehouses. And you could be saving up to 30% on Amazon fees. So
this is the only model that WAPI has not created yet, but we are working on it. we hope that next year or the year after next one, we will have also WAPI pan-EU system.
It's good, but again, you would probably enter into this model when your sales reach certain level, and when you realize, okay, I'm selling 200,000 in Germany, I'm selling 1,000 in UK, so you're gonna have an idea of sort of trends and patterns and your sale capabilities and inventory capabilities, because selling is one thing, but having enough stock and having that distribution network. And when you do pan-European, that means a VAT registration in each single European country. So your accountancy fees would of course go up, and you would need someone to look after that. But again, you would have pan-EU once you reach a certain sales in Europe. You wouldn't do it at the start. This is an interesting slide that I prepared, particularly for Amazon sellers, but you may also encounter those mistakes when you are registering payment systems or payment providers when you go into e-commerce, and we'll quickly run through them. So you can't use the same person in multiple Amazon accounts. Same thing would apply if you try to register PayPal or Stripe into multiple accounts with the same name person. We've seen some of the accounts refuse to be registered because of that. Because what Amazon bank systems, payment providers don't like is when one person has multiple accounts. They consider it some sort of money laundering or suspicious activity, so you could get suspended for that. Another thing is when you try to set up an account but provide bank card into someone else's name. That's not good either. So when you're creating an account, you need to have a bank account either in your company or in your individual name. and that's what is recommendation. You could still go through, but that's like a risk factor that sometimes comes up, what we've seen from our experience. Again, if you're trying to take money out of any e-commerce marketplace, but that account is in someone else's name, it's not in the business name, it's not in your name, it's somebody else. Again, it's a risk factor, and you can get either suspended, or you could get questions why this is the case. Again, it's to counter anti-money laundering in Europe and world. If you set up, for example, Amazon account, but you try registering, you try changing contact details too soon, that's another risk factor for Amazon sellers to get their account suspended at the early days. If you register account from, let's say, one country, but then a week later you try accessing it from other IP addresses, that's also a risk factor. We don't recommend it. Also, if you using virtual private servers and you switch them differently, so if your IP address changes frequently, that's a reason why your account could be suspended or blocked. IP doesn't match the country. We see it as well. For example, you live in one country, but you buy virtual server that doesn't match the country that either the business is located or the contact person is located. So again, it's a danger zone. You don't want to do it. If you say you're based in UK, but you access it from, I don't know, Latvia, that's not good. You could say I've been traveling, you know, and if it happens once or twice, it's okay. But if there is a pattern, you could get in trouble for that. Another common mistakes we see with sellers, they buy virtual servers, but those virtual servers have Windows Server operating system instead of Windows 10. So when you buy a virtual server, go for the Windows 10 option rather than virtual server, because that's how those marketplaces and payment providers know that you're actually using a virtual private server.
It's
so
absolutely unique information. Like you did a huge job to prepare all of this. I've never heard about this, like, for example, point number 7, and frequently changed IP addresses. Okay, I can understand.
Yeah, but you know, the Windows 10 is something that many people kind of don't really think. They use proxy servers, whatever.
Yeah.
But if you buy virtual server, choose the supplier that gives you the Windows 10 Home, for example, operating system, and that will tick this box off.
Okay. And what trouble are you talking about? So you're saying if you don't do this, you'll get in trouble. What kind of trouble?
Well, if you're talking about setting up Amazon account in particular, Amazon gives you like a score system. So the more tick boxes you tick, the more points you get. On the other side, if you do mistakes, you get also points for mistakes. And the more mistakes you do, it's like a factor where they will just block your account, and they will give you or they will not allow you to actually verify it. So you could have a company registered, you could have everything done correctly, but then when you try to access it from a wrong IP address, they could say, oh, there is a mismatch of information. You provided us that you're based here, but you're trying to access it from another location.
What happens if you are working, for example, with marketing agency, and you give them the login and the password to go inside, and or you have outsourced employees that are working worldwide?
Well, that way you'd create a user permission for a different user. You wouldn't give your credentials. It's against Amazon policy to give your account to somebody else. You have to create a user permission. So you can kind of appeal it, and you would explain that this is what happened. I was traveling, or I gave my account to somebody else, and they would most likely allow you, and they will forgive you on the first occasion. But if it's systematic, then your account may be suspended, even if everything else is good. But you know, if there is a mismatch of information you provided and how you actually do it, this is a risk area. That's all pretty much. So you just have to be worried, and you have to read the Amazon terms and conditions. If you have accountant, you give them user permission. You have a marketing person, you give them user permission. You have a developer, you give them user permission. That's the official position of Amazon.
Let's go further.
Okay. Going next, point number 8, using same address for many companies. We've seen it in UK in particular. So for example, there is a UK registration agent that takes maybe just $9.99 to set up a company. and they have about 300 companies in the same address, and they all are used for Amazon. And again, Amazon kind of knows it's a virtual company, they know it's a virtual address, and to them it's another point that will be used against you. If you could still go ahead, but if you have enough points against you, your account doesn't get verified, and you have to appeal it, and the whole process could just take 2-3 months. And you can explain, yeah, I'm using agent, but I already have a warehouse, I'm using WAPI, I'm using Amazon, and you can get it registered, but you just have to jump over a number of holders and appeals, pretty much.
They're like blocking all the simple ways to start working with them. Yes,
they're making it hard. So unless you know what you're doing, it just they will, especially now in this time of the year, it's harder to register accounts. So every single little thing matters, especially around this time of the year before Christmas. So another thing we've seen with sellers, especially who are not based in Europe themselves, they sometimes buy like utility bill from somebody else, which is essentially is making up documents. Faking documents, it's a criminal offense. We do not recommend it, and there is absolutely no point doing it. You could buy a simple like internet for a couple of months or mobile phone plan, pay 30 euro per month, and you get official utility bill. Why would you pay somebody $20-30 for them to make your fake document? You're risking yourself. You could have a conviction, and you're essentially, opening up to all sorts of wrongdoing for yourself. So never ever fake documents. That's my advice to Amazon sellers. You can do everything right, legit from start, and that's the best way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing we see, people sometimes provide documents, but they're in low resolution. And when you set up an account, Amazon doesn't always tell you that it's because of resolution. They will just reject, but they don't necessarily tell you this. Sometimes it's also in unsupported language. And again, we've seen this with a couple of accounts. They reject registration. They say, we did not accept your documents, but they don't specify why exactly. So just something for you to know, if your documents are not in supported language, get notarized translation. If they're low resolution, do a better resolution. But
what are the supported languages?
What are the languages?
Yeah, supported languages. English.
English, and luckily, surprisingly, they've recently added Russian to the support. That's probably to counter all the Eastern European sellers.
Okay.
Another last few points, we've seen it before. It's like using Gmail address and using no website. Essentially using something like, so if you set up a bank account or you set up a payment processor, they want to see that you have your own website. So it's something you could do very quickly. Just register a domain. It could be not just .com, it could be .eu, .io, .store, whatever, but register a domain, put something like here, website is under construction, before you actually try to open a bank account, before you try to open an account. This is a really positive sign to them. If you say, I'm alex.chernenko@gmail.com and you try to register, you could go through, but you're like lacking the points that would be nice for you to have for your credibility. So we recommend, it's like registering a domain is only like 10 euro per year. So why would you not do it? So that's something again to keep in mind. And finally, we've seen sometimes accounts are asked to provide additional information, but they don't respond on time, and that's another reason why account could be suspended. So again, you could take a screenshot of this and make sure it's something you would do.
I am absolutely amazed. Thank you for this, because this thing costs money. What you are sharing right now. This is your experience, and I think for a long period of time. That you have found out, because there is no place in internet where you can find it. It is something that you have created by yourself. That's very informative, and this is the knowledge that every person needs to know who wants to enter European market through Amazon.
And the list is actually quite longer. we have more points, and we keep increasing it every year.
And the question, what is doing everything right, like Amazon wants, what is the time period to verify yourself on Amazon? Because this things looks really hard.
Well, to be honest, it's like, okay, you register a company. Once your company is registered, you buy domain, email, and you basically apply for registration. You need to have a debit card. If you're a European resident, yes, if you're a European resident, it could take 2 hours. From 2 hours, Amazon gives you automatically. If any of the so basically the way Amazon works, when you register, it uses artificial intelligence. And if you have enough points where everything is like, you have a website, you have this, you have that, you have that, it could give you automatic verification.
Wow.
If you didn't get enough points, you would go into human verification process. So automatic could happen in 2 hours. Human could take anything from 4 hours to 2 weeks. And if you don't even have enough points, then you would have to convince them that you are legit, and you have to answer queries, you have to provide documents. Additionally, you have to answer their questions, and it could take up to 2 months. So between 2 hours to 2 months, that's sort of lead time we see with accounts. If they don't like something, they could kind of there is 7 circles of hell. There is a famous painting. So that's what Amazon does. It like rejects, you appeal, they reject, you appeal until you get it, but it just takes time.
Okay.
Like from my experience, from all the accounts we registered on Amazon, we didn't have a single company that could not get verified. It just takes more time, but you get it. That's the way it works. If you're legit, of course. If you're trying to do something fishy, then there is nothing we can do. Okay, well, let's go next. I still have another 15 slides to go. So what to do?
We don't have that. We have still time. Maybe you manage to do it. Okay.
So what to do if your account was not verified? We recommended to all the sellers, read Amazon terms and conditions before you respond. You would appeal the process. Again, something like what you could do, what you can't do. Amazon has a very clear set of instructions, and they would be helping. Or you could ask a professional consultant like ourselves to help you. I mean, we had companies who registered, for example, in Poland, in Estonia, and they tried to get in Amazon, but they couldn't. We did not register company for them, but they came to us and asked, could we help them to get verified? And we kind of went through the process, did it a couple of times, and we got it through. So we help sellers also to kind of fix their mistakes that they did themselves. Let's put it this way. And as I said, work with credible suppliers when you do it. It's okay for an entrepreneur to try to do things themselves, but in some cases it pays to hire somebody else for time saving. And from WAPI, you know that yourself.
The same in logistics and fulfillment.
Yeah. Another popular question is, can I sell as an individual versus company? Why do I need a company? And this slide answers that question. If you're living in the country where Amazon allows you to register an account, that's no problem. Like if you're, let's say, a European resident or United States resident, you could open a professional account in your own name. Yes. But
it's first time I hear it. So tell me how it happens. For example, I am the person, I'm the EU citizen. So I can register just my passport in my name and surname and make account for myself.
Yeah,
like
you have to provide your tax number. Of course, you have to provide your tax number because Amazon shares the information with your tax authorities. So what you need to consider, you could open an individual account and you can convert it.
It's not only the individual, it's in Latvia, it would be a self-employed person. Yeah. I'm registering as self-employed and get a tax number.
That's exactly what it is. So individual entrepreneur, self-employed, that's exactly what it is. So you are actually selling as a physical person as opposed to a registered entity.
Mm-hmm.
And the differences are usually if you're selling as a self-employed, you would be subject to higher taxes. So normally, for example, you would pay 20%, for example, in Ireland, if you earn up to 37,000 per year. But if you earn more than that, you would be paying 40%. And similar situation in Germany, if your, for example, a salary or your income is increased, you would be paying higher taxes. And you cannot hide it because, you know, all income is considered your income if you are individual seller. It's also harder to sell the business because it's linked with your personal name. You know, there is kind of less trust anticipated because, you know, if you're a physical person and you just change or something happens to you, you know, the business is gone. You are liable for everything. And that's what many sellers don't kind of think about. So if you kind of go and you do business and something happens and you actually become liable to compensate the damages, what could happen that if you have a car, a house, a land, to compensate for that, that your personal property could be taken away from you to kind of compensate the damages you did running a business as an individual. That's kind of something that people don't really think about. When you compare it with the company is treated completely separately. And if something happens, normally just the share capital of the company is the liability. So let's take Ireland, for example. If you just set up a company here and it's 100 shares and the business became bankrupt or something, you know, it basically didn't work out, you would be liable just for that, for the share capital. Of course, if you did it specifically and you knew that you were doing wrong, then you could be still liable for it. But if it just was a business case or scenario, it's normally protecting the shareholder from personal liability. So, you know, that's something that you need to keep in mind. And if you have a company, you can just transfer your shares. It's easier to sell and you have a higher control over taxes, which means you could keep all the profits, and it's going to be essentially capital acquisition. So you just pay on the profit, or you could reinvest it, or you could decide to take dividends, or you could decide to pay yourself a salary. So you have a better control and more options to play with your money rather than as individual. If you got it as individual, it's all considered your income. In company, you could treat it differently. So from that point of view, you know, if you're only starting, you want to keep costs low and you want to try, you can start as individual. But if you want to really protect yourself and kind of go into scalability, then registered company would make sense to the sellers. Okay. Now, we get asked this question a lot. Which country should I use?
I had this question in my head, actually. Before, I didn't know that now will be this slide, but in my head was the question, why to choose Ireland?
Well, each country sells themselves. For example, now Hungary also sells themselves with 9% corporation tax, but they have 27% VAT rate. So every European company has some benefits over others when you look at it. And if you ask every country, they will tell you they're the best, you know. Okay. Now I'm biased because I'm based in Ireland, and therefore I would be trying to sell Ireland to you, but I recommend to every seller to do their own research. Like registering company in Germany is something that you would be encountering high taxes. That's kind of out of the way. The list is closer to Romania, Bulgaria, Estonia, UK, or Ireland. That's usually the 5 jurisdictions that people have in mind. Bulgaria, because it's easier to register company, it's relatively low, but you have to have a VAT number if you reach over 35,000. Estonia, they have e-residency. They have kind of good tax system, but again, if you take money out, you're still paying taxes. So saying that there is no taxes in Estonia, it's not true. Many people have that misconception. Okay. In Romania, they have a couple of good programs where you just pay profits from the turnover rather than profit. You know, again, it's something you could consider, but Romania is not really a country that Amazon likes to work with. So again, it's something.
Romania is not on the list. You can't use their banks.
No. It's kind of in Europe, but you cannot you cannot take money out from Amazon into Romania bank account in European currency.
Very strange. Okay.
You have to kind of open it in another jurisdiction. UK was a leader for company information until certain time, until they said we are leaving EU. And if you consider profit tax in UK, it's 20%. So you know you would pay higher taxes essentially in UK. So why why would you open a company now that leaves European Union? That's probably not a good decision. Wait until next year, see the new rules, the new regulations, and if it's in favor, then if you want to sell only to UK, then setting up a company there makes sense. If you want to sell for the rest of Europe, you should consider other jurisdictions. And I would like to give you a couple of benefits about Ireland and why it is chosen by.
I've never been to Ireland. I want to hear the benefits.
Yeah, I'll tell you in a second. So if you look at all the biggest brands, they have headquarters here. Even Amazon itself, Google, Apple, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, all of them are based here, and they're using it primarily for tax incentives because it's easier for them to do business here. PricewaterhouseCoopers, one of the leaders in terms of financial analytics and accounting, and they are ranking Ireland as #1 in Europe, #4 in the world. That's the official article. You could read it out, but
we're changing it very fast.
No, it's official. It's official statistics, and if PricewaterhouseCoopers released this rating, it was released last year. It still remains as of to date. When you compare it, it's not just the corporation tax. You could say, okay, Estonia has 0 corporation tax, or Hungary has only 9%. It's not just the corporation tax rate. It's how many times you have to file your declarations, how easy it is for you to take money out. Are the banks and the financial regulator controller verifying every single transaction? So it's a whole pile of benefits that you have to consider. It's not just the tax rate, because you, as a business, you're not just paying a particular tax rate. And this slide illustrates that it's 12.5 corporation tax rate, but there are also tax incentive. So if you're creating multiple jobs, if you are a startup, there are certain grants, there are certain incentives that you could apply for in Ireland. There are double tax treaties with all the member states and countries outside of European Union with Ireland. It's a wide jurisdiction, so it means if you have an Irish company, other countries are very easy to do business with you than if you're coming with, for example, well, nothing to say against Latvia, but there was a trend. There were many companies set up in Latvia, but then there was a crisis. The banks stopped opening accounts for foreign entities, and Latvia was no longer on the list, so people stopped doing it. Now, Estonia, there is still a trend to set up companies there, but the trend is dropping from our experience. So you look at the way that if you want to sell in Europe, which country you would choose, any European country could be selected, and that's the way. But then you look, are you considered to be a white jurisdiction, or are you considered to be gray jurisdiction? And again, Romania has this perceived attitude that it's not 100% white, and you just have to deal with it. You cannot jump over this perception, and it's perception by the banks, perception by the payment processors. So Ireland would be in that regard. If you have a business in here and you start working and you decide to come here, there is a potential to get residency and citizenship after 5 years. So to some non-European residents, it's an opportunity. If you're based outside of you set up a business, then you get yourself a permission to come. That's through the company, through the business, you can actually become a European resident. That's another opportunity. There is no corruption, no currency control, which means that your transactions do not get scrutinily verified as would be in other banks. For example, you don't need to provide agreement with your supplier, an invoice for each single transaction. So that's, again, makes things easy. It's a part of you. There is an English official language, and you could sell globally. We see a trend where clients have US company, but then they set up an Irish company. After some time, they start using Irish also to sell in the US, so that they only do one tax declaration, one annual return, and they don't need to pay twice for accounts.
And this will be my question. Maybe you have this slide, but everybody is interested about this now. 3 locations. So before Brexit, it was European Union and is the United States of America, and now we have European Union, United Kingdom, and United States. All of them with the big markets everybody wants to trade in all three locations, and it is very interesting how to properly registrate where registered your company so that easily trade in all the three markets.
That's a very good question, and it comes up recently. So if you intend to sell in UK, it kind of makes a logical sense to set up a company in UK because it will be treated as a separate market. But the good thing about Ireland is that between our two countries, there's always been a relationship. So, for example, when there is certain tax restrictions with the rest of European Union, we believe that Ireland would have a more favorable position, especially because you know that there is Northern Ireland and South Ireland. So Ireland doesn't have a real border with the UK. So that means that people just cross over. And if you start to impose in some taxes or import duties on that, it's not going to work physically because they need to build a wall, and it's not going to happen.
Donald Trump in states, yes, with Mexico, you will have. Oh, you will also have to build a wall.
So it's not going to happen. So between Ireland and UK, there will be always a favorable place. So if Irish businesses have been selling to UK after Brexit, there is expectations that not a lot going to change. And same thing if you're an Irish company selling into US, that's quite easy. There is no issues there. So having a company in Ireland kind of hits three boxes. It allows you to sell to the rest of Europe in English. It allows you to sell in US. And whatever is going to happen in Brexit, Ireland is in better chances than any other European company because of the close borders and relationship. That's to answer your question.
Mm-hmm. And what will happen with the taxes? So trader will have to pay income tax in Ireland. At the same time, trader will have to have EORI number in Ireland or in Germany, and the second EORI number in UK.
No, EORI number is issued once, and it's usually issued in the country.
It was issued once before the Brexit, and what will happen now? Because
if you had EORI from UK, then you're likely to have a different EORI for Europe now. It's going to have to be transitioned. If you had EORI not in UK, then you continue using it. But now, for example, what we've seen with some clients, they opened Irish company, but then they didn't have the Irish VAT number because they didn't actually sell here. They went straight to Germany. So they got the VAT number in Germany, and they got the EORI number in Germany because that's where they were kind of really based. But the official position is that you open EORI in the European country where your business is located. So you'd have an Irish company with the Irish VAT and Irish EORI, and then you use that number with Germany, with Italy, with France, whatever.
Yes, with EORI number, it is said that you get this number in the country where first time your goods come. So probably the Ireland will not be the first country for the goods import. Yeah. So probably it will be Germany.
Yeah, so most of our clients actually, that's how they did the VAT registration. The EORI was not done in Ireland, but was done where they were importing the goods.
Okay, this is the first part. The trader settles company in Ireland, gets German EORI and VAT number. What the seller should get in UK? The VAT number in UK?
Yeah.
And the EORI number in UK also? No?
That will be equivalent to EORI after Brexit, yes.
Okay. And about United States, what
is it, that EORI will no longer apply. EORI is essentially European number, so it's just going to be dropped from the Brexit. There's going to be just a kind of a tax number, and the tax number should be matched with the import number.
There will be something different.
It's going to change the name. It's probably just going to be the VAT number.
Okay, and to trade in the United States of America, we will have to get what?
Well, if you're trading if you're trading in United States of America, you do not need to get anything pretty much, unless there's certain goods that you are importing. So usually, if your broker is or if your logistics provider is importing goods, then it's a different story. There is certain import tax duties, but usually it's handled by the
But the custom broker in States will clear the customs, pay the duties. You don't have to get any additional.
That's usually how we see clients are
So
handling it.
Traders Ireland company doesn't have to get some tax number in the States.
No, we haven't seen that happening.
Okay, wonderful.
It's quite easy. Like US would be an easier jurisdiction to import goods as opposed to within Europe. There is less restrictions.
Okay, let's continue.
Another thing that comes up quickly recently, and it's applicable to the whole European Union, it's a substance. So what you could have a company in one country, reside in another one, and one day a tax authority could come to you and say, it doesn't matter that you have business in that country, you have to pay local tax rates. So if you paid smaller corporation tax in a particular country, they could come to you and ask you to pay the difference of your local tax rate. And that's something that now comes up more and more frequently. Like it's not just for Europe, it's also for outside of Europe. If you have a business elsewhere, your local taxes could actually come and put you in a very bad position. So the substance is basically, do you have any employees in that country? Are you physically present? Do you have your own office? Do you have any local clients or local suppliers? Or are you using only that country to avoid taxes? So if the answer is you're using that country to avoid taxes and you don't have a substance, there is a chance that you could be paying a tax difference or a tax rate locally. So that's something that we see now coming up very frequently. And it's the whole trend across European Union, especially after, I would say after COVID pandemic and the economic recession, tax authorities will be looking for ways to get money from successful entrepreneurs who have money. So if you're making good profit.
One of the ways to do it, because now a huge amount of companies went online and are using this different ways to register companies.
Yeah, so what you need to consider that you would like to minimize the risk of being taxed.
So how to do it?
And you would like to minimize, you would like to minimize kind of you would like to make your case stronger. So to create a substance, you basically have to have local employees, and you have to pay some salaries, you have to pay some taxes. It's recommended that you have the actual office. It's not just a virtual office where nobody's working. You actually rent your own office. You have your rent agreement, and you have 1 or 2 employees. And it doesn't cost that much. If you have your small office, now you're looking for a rent between 50 to 100 euro a month. There is co-working spaces, for example. You could have a co-working space where you rent a desk, and you could hire a marketing person, you could hire a secretarial person, you could hire a customer support person. So the kind of office and employees would be the first 2 points that we recommend scaling businesses to do. And it's to kind of it's a protection, but it also creating that substance. So if there is a conflict with the tax authorities, you would have kind of evidence, the real evidence to say, well, listen, we are creating jobs in this country. Yes, we are only starting with 1, 2, but we are doing this, and we have plans to do more. We have our own office. This is a rent agreement. We signed it on this particular date. I already have a couple of local clients, like local shops. So this is now what we see with scaling sellers, that they have local employees, they have office, and they also try to create a client-supply relationship with some of the local businesses. Like for example, if you're Amazon seller, there is nothing stopping you to sell to a couple of local shops so that you have that invoice between 2 of you. This is just things that we recommend doing it. It's not something that you have to do, but if you do it and your local tax authorities come to you one day, you could then use it to protect yourself. Okay, I just have 3 more slides, and then we could jump into questions.
Actually, we run out of time, so please try to do it fast. Okay?
Yeah, another thing to consider, from September 2020, Amazon publishes full name. So if you're selling as individual, your name, your home address will be seen on everyone to Amazon. So that's something that you need to remember. If it's a company, it will be just company and company address. But if individual, your privacy is essentially no longer
Will there be the phone number and the email address? because we need all these contacts.
Yeah, that it
Call
will put
them
it
and tell them that there is WAPI, the best fulfillment service in Europe.
Yes, they will put contact details as well because you're considered a business. So there should be a business telephone line. And if it's your mobile, then everybody will get access to your mobile.
Okay.
So how do we?
When will it start?
It's
When?
September this year.
It's already started. Okay.
Yeah, it's from just a couple of months, but now like you can't really hide it. And so how do we package? I wanted to explain very briefly that when we register a company, that we would normally, if you have a European mobile number, you can use your own one. But if not, there is opportunity to do it virtually, so you can get a virtual SMS without any roaming fees. You would register domain and email. You would get an official utility bill, and TransferWise is the bank account that works with Amazon very smoothly at the moment. You get a debit card, you get all your euro, USD dollars, Great British pounds currencies, and at the moment we recommend TransferWise as the first choice for Amazon sellers. It's quite easy to register it for Irish company. So you get the card, you get the bank accounts, you get the bank statement that you can also use as a proof of address. Some clients prefer to work with Payoneer. You could still register it, tax registration, and then you would need a VAT number. We also realized that clients, when we give them the company, they cannot get the verification themselves, or they mess it up somehow. So we offer it as a part of the service, company plus the verification service. And we look after bookkeeping, accounting. So that's kind of the journey from registering company to selling and continuing to be compliant. What I prepared for all the listeners of this webinar, that if you're interested to get one-on-one free consultation, just use this link, put your information. And if you decide that you would like to register a company with our help, we would like to give you this special promotion. It's valid until the end of November, but the consultation is there. So if you would like to ask me specific question on a one-to-one basis, I would be happy to delegate that time.
Wonderful.
So
I'm sure that everybody should use this opportunity, because according to the presentation, you've got plenty of information. So I know a lot, but you showed me something that I saw for the first time, and that's great. That's great. Thank you very much. And I suggest everybody to use this opportunity and have one-on-one consultation with you.
Well, that's all for me. I hope that was some interesting content. Let's answer some questions from the viewers.
It was not some, it was a lot of interesting information, and thank you very much. Thank you very much. We've got the question here. Do you think that the amount of sellers on Amazon will be increased in 2021?
It's continued to be increased, but it actually becomes harder for Amazon sellers to register. So on one side, you have more interest for Amazon, because there's like early adopters, then followers, and late adopters. So now everybody now knows that Amazon sellers are making money, and there is already more than 65,000 sellers who earned more than $100 per year. So there is 65,000 sellers earning more than 100K. So it's attractive, and there is more interest. But on the other side, Amazon makes it harder. So they're like balancing each other. So there is still new accounts registered, but it becomes a little bit more harder. So we're gonna see.
Yeah.
I would say the number of new accounts will be still under 1 million per year, and that's the trend we've seen up to now. I don't think it's gonna.
Also the important question is about automatic system to understand what amount of VAT to pay in which country. Do you have information about this? So if you're selling everywhere and it is more than the thresholds, you have to understand what amount of VAT to pay to which country.
Yeah, there is a list of countries with their thresholds. It's you can Google it easily. I could send a link to everyone. It's just there is a European VAT threshold list. Now, what Amazon does, and actually they now offering free VAT registration up for the first year. Before they used to charge €400 for VAT registration and kind of easy VAT reporting. Now they do it for free. And that's probably to encourage some of the sellers. It's only for the first year, but you get the free VAT registration and you get your reports already showing you the VAT on them. So it makes it easier for accounting bookkeeping purposes. And everybody who registers now, we recommend to avail of that service. What probably could happen that Amazon will be also deducting this VAT and paying to authorities. That's the European Union wants to make Amazon responsible for that. So they don't go and chase individual companies. They just say, Amazon, you have to do it. So Amazon takes the VAT and kind of pays it. That's the way European Commission wants it to work. But again, Amazon is not doing it quite yet, but it's probably something that could come. You know, you will just have to pay like 20% in UK, whatever, 19% in Germany, and then you have to claim back any VAT that you actually spent on the import or something.
Okay, Alex, thank you very much. We have run out of time, so I'll ask you only one question. Usually ask 3 at the end of the webinar. One question for you will be how to be successful in business in general. Can you share with us experience, your knowledge, how to be successful in business?
Yeah,
I
have a couple of rules that I learned. You have to enjoy what you are doing, and you have to be creating value for others. So the value could be in the form of a help, in the form of saving time, saving money, doesn't matter. But if you're creating value for others, that's essentially a road to success. If you're only gaining, if you're gaining more than you're giving, then it's a dead end. So you have to give always a little bit more than you're getting in return. And that goes back to what I said earlier, that seeing our customers earning more than we do, that's kind of how we create value, you know, for businesses. And that's how we become more successful, I believe.
Absolutely great. I agree with you 100%. Money is something that comes to you in exchange on the value that you're creating. So thank you again very much for this webinar. Thank you everybody who was listening us today. And I hope we did a great job and shared with you very important information. Please stay tuned, register for our next webinars every Thursday with you, WAPI webinar, and me, myself, Alexander Fridman, founder and CEO of WAPI company.
Well, thank you very much, Alexander. You know, I enjoyed it myself. Good luck to all the existing sellers or the new sellers who want to join this path. You know, I wish you success, and you know, if let's keep in touch.
Let's keep in touch. Thank you, Alex. Thank you very much.